Good afternoon, everyone. China outlaws ICOs. They had real trouble even trying to halt Bitcoin trading. That's an uphill battle. 60 exchanges affected. People's Bank of China coming out with news release, maintain the normal financial order. Funny, coming from inflated P&L sheets that caused the 2008 grandest bubble of all time to crash. And they're going on about multiple risks and false asset risks. Even after the 2015-16 crash, these exchanges here are allowing you to exit your funds right now, Motion, Bodhi, and Decentraland. The other exchanges suspended trading, but your accounts are still open. Interesting timing, just 6 weeks before the 19th National Congress of the Communist Party of China. This is where the entire Communist Party gets together for the next 5-year plan, but they need to show everybody that they are just doing so good operating the economy in the country. And you'll notice, prior to every one of these events, there are measures put in. This time it's capital controls, trying to ramp up the trade surplus, IPO suspensions in 2007, rules on limits for house purchases to try to quell the economy in 2011. And here we are, 2017, more measures, encouraging to invest in the weak state enterprises that were poorly run anyway. IPOs are taken away from the traditional investment instruments. Let's see who's going to be in control of the new exchanges and IPOs when it's reworked and a whole bunch of new regulations are in. Because in the new 5-year plan, blockchain is included in that, and they are pushing forward. They're talking with Ripple for cross-border payments. Wild card, though, the gloomy millennials. There's 380 million of them that understand they will never own a house, and they will probably not have a good-paying job either. They are voracious internet users, and where are they spending all their time? Trading cryptocurrency. And as I said before, the ramp-up and intensification of the grand solar minimum is going to go lockstep with the awareness on the planet to get everybody into this cryptocurrency system. So here's your timeline when the ICOs and the exchanges are going to start back in China. And while you're watching the video, please remember to subscribe to Adapt 2030 and click that bell so you can stay subscribed and get the latest updates. If you hadn't seen the news or heard, China has just outlawed all initial coin offerings. Financial regulators ordered to halt all token trading and shut down the apps that access these ICOs across China. They were talking about taking action back on September 2nd, but they waited a couple days to do such a thing. CNBC picking it up. Over 60 major platforms going to be audited. And once they are, and there's tax regulations in place, it'll be game on again. Let's take a look at how long that's going to take. Chinese government understands that this is a decentralized platform as much as it can be outside their control, and it's going to go on with them or without them inside China, because Chinese are smart. They're always going to find a way to make money and get around the rules. And already they've been unable to halt domestic Bitcoin trading. You think with a flick of a switch and that great firewall they have to block the internet, they'd be able to do something about that, but they have been unable to. So this comes from the People's Bank of China, also known as the 中国人民银行. This was their press release that came out earlier today. They're talking about ICOs are illegal financial activities, and they seriously disrupt the economic and financial order. Because the only body allowed to engage in illegal financial activities are the auditors inside those state-run enterprises that inflated all the books that caused the crashes after the mega commodities bubble in 2009, and then also the fake asset and the fake run-up in real estate prices on the books, verified by accountants, crashed the markets in 2015. And they also say that virtual currency does not have a legal status equal to money. Well, I guess money is just a belief system anyway, so whatever way the belief is moving is where the actual wealth value is. It's a non-approved, illegal, open financial behavior. This is bad. So what they're ordering the internet service providers to do within the country are block the websites and shut off their mobile apps. And also, they're offering rewards for you to snitch, tattle, or whatever you call that on anybody that is still transacting with cryptocurrency should be promptly reported to the relevant departments, because you will get brownie points still in this system that exists within China. The guanxi will bring you up a level because you are still supporting the state. And they call on everybody to jointly maintain the normal financial order. There's just so much money going into the ICOs that it's actually pulling out of the traditional markets right now, which is spooking them a little bit. They're trying to reinflate the markets. You see those two big red spikes? Those are because of false bookkeeping in China. First big spike, commodities. Second large spike, real estate. So all these exchanges are cut down. There's 60 of them currently that are going to be audited. If you have any funds in there, ICO Info was able to give a small list of the exchanges that are currently allowed to withdraw funds. That would include Motion, Bodhi, and Decentraland. The exchanges you still have access to, but you need to get permission now to withdraw the funds are LL Token, UIP, CCC, HMS, VE Chain, BEX, and iMatrix. Now, Red Pulse was using the Neo platform to launch their ICO, but they've quickly flipped, and now no Chinese citizens are allowed to get in on the highly awaited, most anticipated ICO of the entire year in China is suddenly off limits. Now, NEO had its run up to about $50 US. It's been pounded back to under 20 right now. It was a rebranding of Ant shares. And this was designed specifically, and in my personal opinion, by the Chinese authorities, because the way that platform and blockchain was organized and developed, all third-party side chains had to connect through Neo. So it was not really decentralized. It was a centralized platform. And even in China's central bank 5-year plan, they're talking about blockchain development. People's Bank of China and the Politburo overseeing all of this. This is from 2016 to 2020. This gets into the sovereign coin issuance. And then 2 weeks ago, not only was it the People's Bank of China talking with Ripple, also Alibaba had spoken to them about cross-border payments. That's why there was such a massive run-up in price on Ripple. All this is of incredibly interesting timing because the 19th NCCPC coming up October 18th. Now, the Politburo organizes this, and this is literally every communist member that has any type of power at a provincial level, a city level, or national level comes to gather. Thousands of people come together to set policy for the next 5-year plan. This is the glorious 5-year meeting. Everything has to be completely orderly, and they have to be able to show that they've taken care of the people over the last 5 years, that they're doing their very best to make sure that nobody gets scammed inside China, and that leave the reins with them because they are protecting everybody. Now, with Xi Jinping consolidating even more power, he's encouraging state financing institutions, which is having money pulled away from the traditional investment routes into ICOs, and the country's private tech giants to invest in weak state enterprises. Those are the black holes that are mismanaged, that just never stop siphoning off money or losing it like a sieve. Too much guanxi in that system. You can't just fire people for inept actions. It's always, well, I've known them for 5 generations. Well, you're going to know them for 6 generations because you're never going to get fired because you keep that guanxi going for as long as it is. It's something totally different the way things operate in China compared to out in the West. You make a gargantuan mistake that costs millions of dollars to the company, you still stay there, especially if you know somebody higher up that will protect you in the company. Now, the cumulative blockchain investments, ICOs, outdoing venture capital. I mean, why are you going to go through a VC firm if they're going to take 20 or 30%? ICO, you keep nearly all of it. Let's go back to the NCCPC. I put the arrows where those meetings have occurred in the past. Now, 2012, 2007, do you notice a pattern there? 2002 was early days, just before everything really started to kick off. But you can see the policy they set also brought in more foreign domestic investment, got those factories up and running, and turned that place into the manufacturing hub of the planet. But I wanted to point out 2007 and 2012, they put in drastic measures to try to control the economy and show everybody that they were doing a very good job and had the reins really tight on what people were doing, that your money was completely safe in 2007. Just keep investing in the stock market. It's going to go up. The bubble's never going to pop. And then boom, 2009. Now what's happening this time around is non-performing loans are at 11-year high, and they're just going to continue going up because the export model of Chinese expansion and growth has just ceased. Now what they need to do is put capital controls in because so many people are trying to exfil their money out of the country. So again, look how good we are. We're stopping people from leaving the country with the money. Give us a hand. Yay, yay, yay. Give us a hand. Awesome. We're doing such a good job for the country. China's Forex reserves, a little bit down there. They've been cracking down on overseas spending on property prices. There's such a divergent segment of society that's getting really angry that they've missed the boat on making cash. Well, you got millionaires going offshore with their funds, but a majority of the population still is in the less than $20 a day earning. So for the press headlines, we're trying to restrict the rich, from trying to break the rules. We're trying to make everybody equal. See, poor people, we're fighting for you. Looks good on the newspapers, but they're all their same friends, though. That's all the same guanxi going in the same circles. So now the banks are required to report transfers over 200,000 yuan or $30,000, and they're limited to 50,000 US dollars per year. Now what this is doing, again, Chinese are really smart with the money. If you're pushing them into a corner, they're going to find another way to get those funds out. It's just like you block one exit route, no problem. They're going to find another way for the funds to come out of there if you have a solution for that. Bad for some countries that were relying on that milk money coming out for the last 4 or 5 years, specifically places like Vancouver, or that money's drying up and it's not coming back. Trade surplus beats expectations in July. Oh yeah, the party's doing so well. Must be selling more stuff overseas. Look how good our manufacturing base is. We are taking care of the economy for sure. But then they come up with these schemes like they forbade margin lending, then crashed the markets in 15. Then they tried to bring it back, reduce the second mortgage percentages that they tried to quell in the overheated property market. It's just like one thing they try and it leads to another outcome, and then they just backtrack on a lot of things that they put in place. Different way to look at the capital outflows with the Forex reserves here, but I put the arrows again. Seems that just before these meetings, the different measures to try to rein in the economy lead to increased Forex reserves, but then after that you can see the precipitous drop-off back to normal, basically. But it's all during this time, so everything in the headlines looks really good for the Communist Party. Just before the 2012 meetings, Beijing issued all these new rules for limiting house purchases, again because the rich were buying 2, 3, 4 homes, when a majority of the people in the country couldn't even afford one. So to make it look like they were really cracking down on corruption, they raised the second home mortgage to 30% down, and then it was 50% down, cash, before you could finance the rest. And then right after that, several cities followed more suit through the next couple of years, trying to cool down the property market. Didn't really have that much of an effect because here we are in 2016 headlines. Shanghai still needs to tighten rules on buying second homes to cap soaring property prices. So it went right back to business as usual. And then they had to crack down on third-party mobile payment systems. And once they reined that in, whoa, Tencent took over and you just saw the adoption go forward. Again, it was a wild west of the mobile payment systems, the exact same thing we're seeing with the ICOs. But they reined that and got it under control around 2012 at the end of December, January 2013. And from that point, it was off to the races. We're going to see the exact same thing. But this time with the ICOs, it's going to be 2018, off to the races again. There's going to be tightened regulation all the way through December 2017. And then right when it gets into January, middle, or maybe 1st of February, they're going to say, hey, ICOs are okay again, cryptocurrency launch again. Okay, but it's under state regulation. We'll go into who's going to oversee all this. Right before the 2007 meetings, they suspended all initial public offerings in the stock market because the same thing was happening. There was very little oversight, and all these wild westers were throwing out IPOs everywhere. People were losing money left, right, and center. But again, to take the credit and say, look how much we're protecting you, Chinese citizens, we have limited and suspended IPOs. Well, that didn't last too long. But then the big market crash came in 2009 from inflated balance sheets that were not reflecting reality. But that didn't seem to bother the regulators at the time. Everybody turned a blind eye. They just went for the ride. In 2015-16, again, stock market crash. This was on the Shanghai Exchange. A-shares also. Property developers were crushed. There were excessive inventories of steel. Bear market territory. Hong Kong down. Shenzhen down. Shanghai down. And it just kept rolling. But then with the mismanagement of those companies in 1950s thinking in 2015 on the way to operating companies, they had to reinflate those same failing behemoths that have been crashing since 2002 and 3. You think after the third or fourth time that it crashed over a 15-year period that you might restructure it, fire a few people? No. Too much guanxi and connection really over there. And when all else failed to try to boost the economy, credit boom, let people go crazy with the credit cards. You talk about reckless maneuvers. They're following right down the same path as American expansion into this credit cards. Let everybody get 2, 3, 4 cards, go out, spend, buy, reflate the economy. And this credit bubble is a sliver, like 1/5 of 1/8 of a minute away from exploding in on itself. So we're now just weeks away from the 19th National Congress, the Communist Party of China, and they are absolutely going to make themselves look the best they can by reining in these ICOs for these next few months. Now, the Politburo controls everything. And what's interesting, when you try to follow the money and the economics of China, you got the Communist Party, Politburo overseeing the oil companies, CNPC, 中国石油, Chinese National Oil Corporation, CNOOC. And then down there you got the Chinese Export-Import Bank. That's a 中国进出口银行. And then the China Development Bank, 中国发展银行. These are all controlled by the oil company, and the state council links directly to those. And I was like, hey, where have I seen that state council before? Oh, yeah. They're the ones that are overseeing all the People's Bank of China gold monetary system introduction. So wait, this is really intertwined. And they were talking about releasing a blockchain digital yuan in conjunction with the paper yuan. And then they're also going on the gold standard to supply oil, pay for oil. And it's the same group of players that are all intertwined in this. They are not going to let blockchain technology go, and they're not going to let the issuance of coins go. It's all part of the plan to expand Chinese dominance in every space economically, gold holdings, fiat currency, as well as crypto. Absolutely. And we start to really look at the sources of this. Where's the funding flows coming? I'm looking at the very bottom where it says intermediaries. I'm looking at that shadow lenders. And on the right side, the users, they're basically buybacks to keep the economy reinflated. So what's happening is there's too much money flowing out of this traditional system, and they understand it. And what's the wild card of the money outflow? Gloomy millennials. And if you're not paying attention or don't know what's happening in China, it's pretty much the same thing that's happening globally. College-age students or ones that have just graduated have no hope of getting a high-paying job. They have no hope of ever buying a home. And in China, for the males, there's far more males than there are females due to the one-child policy, so the girls have the pick of the guys. And if the guys don't have a high-paying job, and if they don't have a house, they have 0% chance of getting married to a Chinese girl. So how many of these gloomy millennials are there? Oh, 380 million. And this is in the 18 to 35 age group. Opportunities from earlier generations are limited. Same thing in Europe. It's happening globally. These people are disgruntled. They have a dim view of the career and marriage prospects. It's cutthroat competition for good jobs. Everything's getting more expensive. Inflation's out of control in China, although they say it's not, but things have doubled and tripled in price food-wise over the last 3 years. So what do? The internet itself is a channel to release pressure. Now, since the Chinese youth are early adopters and incredibly immersed in the internet, they are the ones who are driving the cryptocurrency boom inside China. So the internet penetration rate's at least 53%. And also when we take a look at the adoption of technologies early on the world stage, Chinese are always leading it. It could be from fintech swipe codes in restaurants, QR code swipes to pay for a stick of gum, buying Starbucks coffee with Bitcoin. This is Uber trips. Look how much earlier they adopted the Uber than everybody else in the West has, especially in Guangzhou and Chengdu. And the youth are all over the net. There's 900 million registered accounts and microblogs, but all of this is under the Tencent umbrella. And when you look at the top 10 Chinese regions by internet penetration, the further down you go, the poorer provinces you get into, like Shanxi, the coal mining. If you're sitting back in a coal mining town, you got no prospect for a job, and even the money you have, you know if you put it into coal stocks, that's going nowhere. You're suddenly on the internet and hear about ICOs and cryptocurrencies, and you see all these people making money. What are you going to do? Even with your meager savings, you're going to throw that right into the crypto space because they're starting to see a repeat of what happened in 2002 as everything expanded. They've lived through it once. They're seeing the trend come again. But you still have internet access. You could trade online with cryptocurrency. It's gotten so bad, actually, that the state media has come out with new regulations issued just a couple months ago in June calling for positive energy online and audio-visual content. It's called the Sang culture, or some people call it Sung or Sang. This is the negative, pessimistic culture, and they have an opposite for it called Ran, which means burning and convey a sense of optimism. They're trying to undermine the Sang culture because everybody is so negative with prospects for the future. And with ICO funding outpacing venture capital, China government's right in on a 5-year plan. And I have read that they are putting up a sovereign UN cryptocurrency replacement. And the 5-year plan even outlines blockchain adoption, implementation, and expansion, all the way to 2020 with the People's Bank of China. In conjunction with this is them launching the quantum communications satellite network to be able to send this through an encrypted space that is uncrackable. This quantum communications network sends beams of photons down, and if it's intercepted during that time, it self-destructs and they're able to issue a new band. All of these quantum transmitters and receivers are being produced in China. They are rolling out the system globally. Downstream, upstream, they are the main players in the implementation. They are not going to let this go. Now Dutch banks are getting on board. Well, they were already on board, but now they're publicly stating they're on board. And with India, Bitcoin now being accepted as a donation method at Indian temples, the Sikhs are developing their own apps so they can take in Bitcoin as donations. Incredible. And like I said, the adoption and the market cap of cryptocurrency is going to go lockstep with the intensification of the grand solar minimum, as well as the concerted effort globally to get this into the news media. So my question is, with what you just saw, how much new news media fervor do you think this is getting into new spaces that people never heard about this before? There's probably 100 million new people that heard about this just because the blocking of the ICOs in China. Now with the timeline going out, there was a delay time of approximately 1 quarter after the NCCPC meetings until business as usual again. So based on these past moves that the NCCPC has done, there's going to be a consolidation of cryptocurrency exchanges. They're going to weed out the small ones. They're going to combine these. Probably there'll be 3 or 4. That'll be it. They're going to rein in the ICOs, full governance and overseership of at least the People's Bank of China and the Politburo, with full tax statutes, government regulation, and audits, whatever that means in China. You saw what happened with the state-owned enterprises. Their audits are, I could go in and audit a company, and I'm not an accountant, and I could probably give you better numbers. Increasing food prices brought on by the continuing grand solar minimum, this scares them. The millennials are already disgruntled. There's 380 million of them. That's larger than the population of the entire United States plus Canada combined. And the inflation for food alone and the diversion of capital to the traditional markets where they're trying to inflate again, it's like the perfect storm going on there. So now they have to allow these disgruntled millennials an opportunity to make money. I do believe it will be the crypto exchanges where they'll allow them to vent their anger and at least have a chance, a glimmer of hope, a light at the end of the tunnel that they can succeed. They could make money, just like their parents did, investing in stocks in, say, 2002 or 2003 before the giant expansion in China. So I'm saying, this is my timeline, crypto is going to make a huge comeback in China. It will be fully backed by the government. It will be fully regulated by the government. It will be game on again January or February of 2018 with the full development and implementation, sovereign coin, UN replacement, and I do believe a hybrid corporate coin offering will also be on the table there for these failing institutions. Or maybe it'll give them a chance to get a backdoor to reinflate the failing state-owned enterprises. Look for all these things to happen within the next 5 months. Thanks for watching. Hope you got something out of the video. If you found this of value to you, please consider supporting me on PayPal, Patreon, and I myself have linked all of my crypto wallet deposit addresses in the description box.